Oh look, another post-apocalyptic game featuring a nasty human-killing virus where mankind has been plunged into chaos. But this time, zombies aren't involved for once, which is a nice change, with the undead in video games being about as common as duck faces on Instagram, and pretty much thrown into every bloody title we pick up these days. In this one though, things are playing out a little bit differently to the norm. It's a new IP, third-person shooter, PvPvE, which basically stands for player versus environment, and it doesn't follow the typical simple mechanics of an ordinary paint-by-numbers shooter. That said, there's been a lot of hype surrounding the game, ever since we all lost our shit when we saw that car door close back in E3 2013. But with the hype machine proving to be a huge factor on a game's success, and with some recent titles losing all of their momentum upon release, down to them not being as fantastic as we all assumed they were going to be, will the game live up to the hype and accomplish what it set out to do in the first place? Or will it fall flat on its face in a contaminated puddle of consumer regret? Well, it's time to find out. Here's my review on a game called Tom Clancy's The Division. In our latest outing, we're taking a bite out of a big infected apple. The Division takes us to New York City, at the most wonderful time of the year, but everyone's getting down with the sickness, as a naughty person has trolled the human race by sneakily adding an extremely dangerous and highly deadly virus onto banknotes during the Black Friday sales, as if Black Friday wasn't already deadly enough. Over the following weeks, instead of downing bottles of eggnog and eating their own body weight in spuds and turkey, the people of Manhattan are rapidly dropping off like flies, as areas become more contaminated and the infected are forced into quarantine zones. So with its head down the toilet, New York needs a hero. And this time, unfortunately, Spider-Man must have gone on holiday. Either that or he's too busy filming Civil War 2. So with that, the US government activates sleeper agents within the population, and these agents operate for the Division, who are there to assist emergency forces like the JTF, to help the city get its shit together and to restore order. This is where you come into the whole thing, and just like a fresh, new bank card, you've been activated as a member of the Division, and so must get out there and combat the looters, rioters, gangs and psychopaths, and help aid the remaining survivors of the pandemic. And that's pretty much as far as it goes when it comes to general plot lines. The Division isn't just your ordinary bog-standard third-person shooter. It's got a fair amount of depth to it, with all the complex menus and looting system. It's got a bit of a steeper learning curve than other games, and casual gamers who haven't got a clue what an RPG is, who just expected to grab a gun and just shoot people, will probably be baffled by the game as soon as they switch it on. From weapon mods, level gear, perks, XP systems, and countless other menus to get your head around. And as far as RPGs go, the Division's got all the bells and whistles. Now with it being a third-person shooter, you're obviously going to need some baddies to shoot at, and these come in the form of a few different enemy factions. There's psychopathic arsonists called the Cleaners, who think that burning everything to a crisp is somehow going to save humanity, heavily armed soldiers trying to take over the city, and of course looters and rioters who just want to be dicks. The Cleaners will try to barbecue anyone who strays too close, armed thugs will gun you down if you get in the way, and then there's the idiots of the game who have more balls than sense, that stupidly run at you and don't really mind if they get their head blown off by a shotgun in the process, because apparently running at an armed man with a baseball bat sounds like a logical idea. Just like nearly every other open world game you've ever played in the past 5 years, The Division offers a variety of things to do. From the main chunky missions dotted around the different districts of New York, to the smaller side stuff that helps to try and keep us engaged in between. But unlike most open world games we've played in the past 5 years, the bigger main missions that act as the game's beefier quests, well, it's totally up to you when you choose to take them on, as there isn't really a specific order in which they need to be played. Though the districts are all linked with a level range, so if you wander into an area that's got a lot tougher enemies than you, then you're gonna have a bad time. This kinda makes it that you have to stick within the areas of your level, completing a bunch of missions and side missions and offering these places, before advancing to newer, more hostile zones. Each of the main districts in the city have a safe house, that mark the available wing missions for upgrading your base with flashy new crap. There's also people that give you side missions to go out and do within the district, and for the majority of the game, it's these that are going to keep you occupied, as the main missions are few and far between. Because of the nature of the game, the story is a bit of a fail. The main missions are a lot more eventful, taking you through factories, apartment blocks, and even Times Square itself, but they're completely disconnected from an overlying narrative. There's always a reason for accomplishing the missions, other than the fact that they give you a shitload of XP points, but you never really feel as though a story is developing or an end goal is on its way to being achieved. The same thing goes for characters, which are really just NPCs that don't have any reason to be remembered. In my experience, there's only really two main characters of the game. The first being yourself, which, other than looks and stats, has about as much depth as a wooden spoon, and the other main character is the gorgeous looking environment. The attention to detail in the game is great, and sometimes it's these extra features that help portray what the world would look like in an apocalyptic setting, defining your surroundings, which makes them much more interesting to explore and navigate through. It looks like a world that's been lived in and tells its own stories. Everywhere's a complete mess, environments are destroyed, rooms are trashed, and safe houses look like they're owned by students. The city definitely looks like it's seen better days, and it's probably one of the most detailed environments I've wandered around as far as video games go. That said, there isn't a hell of a lot of stuff going on in the environment, as it feels a bit dead at times, and considering you've been thrown into a huge city with an enormous population, it would have been nicer to see more people with more random things going on as you travel around, like survivor camps, bands searching for food, tradesmen, and just generally more stuff. As although the well-crafted, festive city is hauntingly beautiful, it can sometimes feel like an empty shell crying out for more interactivity. You'll be spending a lot of time dashing around the silent streets in search for your next mission and XP boost, and apart from the odd dog that growls at you every now and then, or when a random person asks you for an energy bar in exchange for some trendy ass boots, there really isn't much else to bring the environment alive. Apart from the rats, that seem to be breeding wildly out of control, as they're absolutely friggin' everywhere. Walking around the city and travelling to your destination can feel a bit tedious and repetitive at times, especially as there's so many cars scattered around the streets of Manhattan, just asking to be driven. Now, The Division has a little bit of an identity crisis, as it wants to be a realistic, gritty shooter in a bleak dystopian setting. Yeah, when you shoot a guy in the face with an assault rifle, he'll just stare back at you with colourful numbers popping out of the side of his head. Enemies in The Division are bullet sponges, and they'll just soak up that damage like walking tampons. Once they've finally dropped to the floor, Borderlands style loot will often shine up from their corpses, lighting up the area like some kind of sci-fi laser show. The world seems like a realistic shooter from the surface, but it's a little bit hard to be fully immersed into the game when these kind of things are happening all the time. But although these factors break immersion, I wouldn't really consider them flaws, down to The Division being structured as an RPG styled loot seeking game, with all those related mechanics. Now, although The Division was mainly advertised as a game that caters mainly for people that have friends, pointing its finger towards co-op and player versus player action, it actually offers a bit of a mixture of both single player and multiplayer aspects, giving everyone a choice to do what they want to do. If you want to run around the city, taking out gangs of thugs with a couple of buddies, you can do just that. None of your friends bought the game, and you'd rather not play with random people, well, you'll also be glad to know that you can play most of the game solo too. And unlike Destiny's raids, you actually have the option of being able to hop into lobbies to complete missions, and play with other random gamers in the online universe that you don't know, dropping in and out of people's games if you want to. But anyway, moving on to the main multiplayer element of the game, and one of the more interesting confines of the Division's map, the dreaded Dark Zone. This is where all hell has the opportunity to break loose, pushing you from a world of computer-controlled AI into a much more unpredictable area of play. Other gamers roam around the quarantined Dark Zone, seeking out valuable loot that's held within it. Some of them just want to collect some rare loot and help out others, playing the whole let's all be nice and play along fairly route. But gamers being gamers, there's always going to be a few trolling arsehats that would rather kill you and steal your loot instead of finding their own.
Hey, hurry up, we will kill this guy.
In The Division, being a dick is rewarded, but at the same time, killing non-hostile players will turn you rogue, which basically paints you as a big vulnerable target for everyone else to shoot at, as killing a rogue player will grant you a heaping pile of XP. Becoming rogue can be a risk or reward choice, as stealing loot from others is an easy way to gain any high level gear that the other player might have found throughout their Dark Zone session. And then there's some people who just want to bully other players because they can do. But they'd better prepare themselves for an all-out war with anyone else they come across while they're in rogue status. Any loot collected in the Dark Zone is severely infected and needs to be airlifted by helicopter at extraction points. This is often where big standoffs take place between players and enemy AI, as you never really know who's there to secure their loot and help you out, or who's there to secure their loot and screw you over. If The Division teaches us any valuable life lessons, it's to never trust anyone. Though there's a bit of a flaw here for anyone wanting to just dive into some PvP action, as you've actually either got to wait for a player to become rogue to hunt them down, or beat them to it and be a bit of an arsehole and kill the other innocent buggers running around in your area. If you fancy jumping into an online competitive multiplayer match, then you're shit out of luck, as they don't exist. So The Division will have you saying things out loud like, "Why won't this guy just die already? Oh look, that dog's taking a shit. And who the hell is paying for all of this electricity?" But is The Division worth getting? Well, if I'm gonna be honest, I was actually kind of surprised by how addictive and fun the game can be at times. Progressing your level, being able to access higher variants of loot, and take on tougher enemies in harder districts, it gives a sense of accomplishment that can feel quite addictive and rewarding. It's not very often you see a game like this, and it's really quite unique. Mechanically, it's a bit like if Destiny had a baby with Watch Dogs, and that baby's favourite movie was I Am Legend. There's elements of realism, mismatched with the abstract components of a fantasy RPG. The Division's definitely got its flaws, but when it comes down to being the game it was designed to be, one that can be played online, co-op or competitively or within the same world, with a fairly deep looting and leveling RPG system, The Division succeeds. Its storytelling and characters are almost non-existent, but it's the environment and setting that tell the tale, even if it leaves us running down those dead streets slightly longer than we'd probably enjoy. If you're not really interested in complex RPG leveling and just want to shoot a guy in the face and watch him realistically drop to the floor like a bag of shite, then this game probably isn't for you. But as the game it was advertised as, it does everything it says on the tin, and delivers in most areas. So get ready to roam the streets of a totally fucked up New York and save civilians from bad people, cause you're apparently the good guy, stopping looters from robbing electronic parts from a tech store by killing them all, only to then go and loot the remaining items from the shop anyway. Go figure. You'll be wiping streets from hostile gangs and getting bullied in the dark zone. But one thing's for sure, Google Maps has got nothing on this bloody thing. So guys, that's my take on The Division. I hope you enjoyed the review. Hit that like button if you did, and subscribe to see loads of others. Take it easy, and I'll see you in that next one.